Republican presidential candidate Ron DeSantis is still harboring the delusion that he is somehow going to become the next president of the United States. And in an interview with Megyn Kelly this past week, actually at the end of last week, DeSantis made it clear that if he is elected, he will in fact be pardoning Donald Trump for the good of the country, right? You know, we don't want the bad stuff that comes along with throwing the former president in jail for breaking the law. So DeSantis has now on several occasions put himself on the record saying, I will pardon Donald Trump. Here is what he told Megyn Kelly. Well, what I've said is very simple. I'm going to do what's right for the country. I don't think it would be good for the country to have an almost 80-year-old former president go to prison. It doesn't seem like it would be a good thing. And I look at, former President Gerald Ford pardoned former President Richard Nixon, took some heat for it, but at the end of the day, it's like, do we want to move forward as a country? How'd the rest of the story go for Gerald Ford, by the way? Huh, Ron? You want to include that and be like, hey, by the way, Gerald Ford went on to be elected to 2 terms as president of the United States. No, because that didn't happen, did it, bud? Kind of ruined him, right? I mean, so if you're going to tell a story, tell the whole story. I understand you're the governor of Florida, you're restricting access to U.S. history, but some of it you may need to educate yourself on because the story didn't end great, for Mr. Ford there, now did it? Now, unfortunately, as I said, this is not the first time that Ron DeSantis has said he would pardon Donald Trump, even after the newest indictments came out. But he is also not the only Republican presidential candidate in the last 3 days to double down on pardoning Trump. Both Nikki Haley and Vivek Ramaswamy came out in the last few days and also said that they would pardon Donald Trump, a statement that both of them had already made in the past. So all 3 of them doubled down on it. You've also got a couple of also-ran Republicans who for some reason are still in the race, even though I don't even think most of them have qualified for the debate. But you have Perry Johnson and Larry Elder have all said that they would pardon Donald Trump. Now, we have gotten strong rebukes, of course, from Asa Hutchinson, the former governor of Arkansas, who's also running in the Republican race. He said it's ridiculous that these Republicans are out there talking about pardoning Trump. It would be basically going against the entire justice system if they were to do this. That doesn't make Hutchinson a hero, by the way, for saying he wouldn't pardon Donald Trump. Guy is responsible for some of the most oppressive anti-LGBTQ and anti-women legislation while he was still governor of Arkansas, so he's a piece of crap. He just is a piece of crap that doesn't want to pardon Donald Trump. I'm sure Chris Christie, if he hasn't already by the time you see this, he will eventually come out and say, hell no, I'm not going to pardon him. He's pretty much made that clear. The problem is all of the Republican frontrunners, right, the ones who are actually polling with numbers that we should pay attention to, have said they're going to pardon him. So that may be a reality that we have to start thinking about. Because if Donald Trump ends up getting pushed out of the race, or if his legal problems cause him to fall flat in the primary, we're still likely going to be saddled with a Republican that would pardon him, which, in agreement with Asa Hutchinson, would basically be a slap in the face to the entire justice system here in the United States. If Republicans want to follow through with their talking points that we're the party that's tough on crime, then maybe you ought to let a guy who might be convicted go to jail for it instead of going ahead and saying before we even get all of the indictments and before we get to any trials that you're going to pardon him. Maybe that's not the tough on crime message that Republicans are trying to push. Ring of Fire has fresh content 7 days a week, so if you want to be reminded about it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell to be notified every time a new video goes up.